Another debate that behavioral scientists have had is whether a person's behavior is influenced more by their individual personality traits or by a particular situation.
Our personality is a byproduct of the person, our personality traits, and the situation. Back in 1968, a prominent researcher at Stanford University, his name was Walter Mischel, he wrote a book called Personality Assessment. And in this book, he said that personality doesn't exist because our behavior changes on a day-to-day basis. One situation we might lie, and in another situation we might be honest. So he concluded that personality doesn't exist, that it's the situation that changes our personality or causes our behavior. And what this sparked was a big debate for at least 20 years, and it was called the person-situation debate. Finally, the researchers came to a conclusion that it's an interaction between the person and the situation, or your personality and the environment.
There are two main types of tests: self-report inventories, such as the Myers-Briggs, and projective tests, such as the Rorschach ink blot test or the TAT.
A commonly used projective test is the TAT. It's called the thematic apperception test, and the respondent is given several ambiguous pictures or scenes, and what they're asked to do is to tell a story about the events, the characters, the events that may have led up to that particular scene, and what will happen after the scene. And the evaluator looks for general patterns in the stories that the respondent tells as indicators of that individual's personality.
Self-report inventories are considered a more objective form of personality test than the projective type. Of all these types of tests, the MMPI, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, is the most widely used.
The MMPI is probably the most given of all personality tests. It's empirically derived. There have been like 150 different variables that have been measured by the MMPI. It's been translated into 17 languages, and it's been a part of probably over 50,000 studies. And what it does is compare diagnostic groups and how they respond to questions with normals. And if a question differentiates between a normal and a diagnostic category, then it's a part of the test.
How reliable are personality tests?
As we've moved from the projective test to the objective tests of personality, we've highly improved our reliability and validity in measuring the different factors of personality.
Personality tests are very valid. They can predict an individual's future behavior to a large extent. I would recommend, in addition to administering a personality test to predict behavior, I would use multiple methods. I would observe that individual's behavior. I would ask a well-acquainted peer, or maybe a parent or a sibling of that individual, to give us a judgment about that individual's personality. I would gather lifetime data. I would gather physiological data about that individual, so you can get a complete portrait of what that individual's personality is like. And with this complete portrait, you'll have a higher likelihood of predicting the future behavior of that target individual.
Well, I certainly would say that if you take a personality assessment like the Myers-Briggs, that the validity is certainly there. You can take it yourself and get all excited and get an aha and say, wow, that's really me. That's a good picture of who I am. Certainly given it to enough people where I can say, yes, it's fairly accurate. I'm seeing the person. What I get afraid of, again, is that people buy into that and say, well, that's my personality type. Instead of saying, I'd really like to explore some of the other facets of that career continuum, those personality assessments, to see how I can develop in those areas.
In addition to helping a person make a career decision, personality tests can help us better understand many aspects of human behavior.
One primary use of personality assessment is to diagnose and treat clinical populations of individuals. Personality tests are also used in the selection of personnel in the workplace.
Norm took many personality tests when he was assessing his future career, and now as a career counselor, he also is responsible for administering them.
When we decide that we're going to administer a personality assessment or an interest assessment or a skills assessment, we try to make clear to the student or to the alumni client that these are not, the results are not oracles, that they are a place for us to begin looking, to begin a conversation.
While tests and theories can help us to understand human behavior, it is clear that there is no one single perspective or theory that can effectively explain the vast complexity of the human personality. Assessment tests may be more valuable for some people than for others, but for Norm Stahl, it was the confirmation he needed to make an important transition in his life.
For Norm, in his position, I think he has a real need to, a real caring sense. I mean, he is a very caring person and has a real need to help other people through any process. And that's very important in career counseling because it is a caring profession. It's a counseling profession. And he brings that to his business. He is continuing to learn, and I think that's what most people in today's society recognize. It's all about lifelong learning today. If we're not learning, we're not growing. And we can't give up anymore.
As I looked at assessments, probably their greatest value, and I find this to be true too when I work with people here at the university, was it kind of confirmed, it gave me external confirmation of things that I suspected about myself all along. For lack of a better term, it gave me the courage to go ahead and move ahead and make that transition.
Can we conclude that because of our heredity and environment, we are going to have the same personality traits throughout our lifetime?
It's my opinion that personality traits persist over a lifetime. And there are studies that back this up. They've done studies on the Big Five theory, and those Big Five traits seem to have endured over a 6-year period of time. So it looks like personality is a fairly stable thing, at least along some measures.
Those measures being, among many other things, personality assessments.
The question, again, is whether you buy into a personality assessment and say, aha, this is what I should be and this is where I should go. Certainly, it's a good indicator that you might want to challenge yourself in one direction because that would be a more comfortable fit. On the other hand, I'm the kind of person that says, you should be well-rounded. If nothing else, take your personality assessment and see where your strengths are and appreciate the differences that you and others have.
Was a big decision to leave the defense industry and move into a college or university setting, having to do with not only work environment, but also income and lifestyle and all those kinds of issues. And having this kind of external confirmation that you're right, there's a reason you're miserable, there was a reason this is not a good fit. In the long run, it probably won't work out for you or your employer. Knowing those things gave me the confidence to go ahead and say, okay, it's time for me to move. It makes sense for me to move, and it helped me make that decision.